welcome to the Lockdown Learning Podcast, a series all about parenting and home education during the global COVID-19 pandemic. I'm your host, Mark Gallivan, a father and a staff member at a self-directed school in Colorado, USA called Alpine Valley School.
And I'm your other host, Kate Coleman, a mother to 3 boys and a staff member at East Kent Sudbury School in the UK. Many parents all over the world have spent the last few months acting both as parent and teacher to their children. And for many of us, this has been an opportunity to reassess the educational needs of our families.
We've heard from some parents that their children have thrived being at home. Even though they may be a little lonely or longing for community, suddenly having the pressure of conventional schooling off their shoulders has been a positive move overall.
We want to encourage parents to take this opportunity to really examine your own family's relationship to education and evaluate your children's needs. And these are not subjects that we take lightly. Mark and I know firsthand how hard it can be to challenge conventional expectations when it comes to schooling.
And that's why we turned to an expert. Our guest today is Je'anna Clements, the founder of a self-directed learning community in South Africa and mother to 2 children of her own.
Je'anna knows all about deschooling, the process of examining and letting go of preconceived ideas when it comes to education. Over the years, she has helped a great many people through the process, and today she's here to share her wisdom with you all.
Just listening to Je'anna talk immediately put me at ease. She's so soothing. I already felt like a better, more confident parent after just speaking with her for a few minutes.
We're excited to share her insights with you all today. Here's Je'anna.
I'm Je'anna Clements. I'm from Johannesburg, South Africa. The 2 young people who call me mum are currently turning 10 and 15, and they've been self-educating for their whole lives. So I've been able to really watch that process and learn a lot. I'm also involved as a founder with Riverstone Village, which is a self-directed learning community, where I've also had the opportunity to see 39 other young people go through their own self-directed learning processes. So at this time, there's so many families suddenly without school, and so many young people who are in charge of their own time, and that can look different depending on the temperament and the personality of the child. I think some people are very, very quick to leap into enjoying their interests freely. They'll suddenly start building models or researching things or writing their own songs, or their activity is very spontaneous and gets going quickly. Others can feel a bit daunted and not really know what to do if somebody isn't giving them their usual prompts that they're used to receiving and used to following. And still others might sort of be trying to test the limits and find out, what are the boundaries in this new strange space that we're in? How far does my freedom go? All of those sort of different approaches might even be sort of the same child at different times of the day or over different days. There's 2 main experiences for parents. Obviously, there's going to be any number of experiences, but very broadly, the one is excitement in seeing one's child come alive again and really take charge of their life and sort of watch their curiosity unfold and get pleasantly surprised by the interesting things they start to do when they're actually free and in charge of their own time. And the other response can be to feel a little bit uncertain or even frightened, especially if there isn't a lot of obvious activity or activity that looks like we're used to seeing learning look like. There can be some anxiety that maybe, have I got the one child in the world who can't do this? So it really depends on, I think, 2 things. Firstly, what's happening with a particular child at a particular time, what stage of deschooling the child is in, and also what stage of deschooling the parent is in, because the more that we as adults understand what is going on, the more we know what we're looking at, the more we know what to expect, the easier it is to relax and the easier it is to see what's actually happening. It's a very difficult thing if we've been schooled. We've always been in schoolish environments and our own children have been in school. We tend to cling to the idea of subjects and curricula, particular topics and particular projects, and it's easy to see learning in those contexts. It's not as easy until we've deschooled to see the learning that's happening all the time, the learning that's happening in little bits and pieces and adding up slowly over days. Deschooling is really about letting go of being told what to do and letting the motivation come from the outside. So at school, we learn to do things for reward and for punishment. And letting go of that is about tuning back into what my inner self is telling me to do, my own interests driving me, my own curiosity reawakening, my own persistence and determination reigniting. The meta-learning, especially. We're used to thinking of factoids and information, the kinds of things that can be tested as learning. And it can take a little while to realize that that's the stuff that gets flushed at the end of the test. And it doesn't really matter if my child is spending their day memorizing all of the statistics for turtles in the North Sea or whatever it is. What matters is the development of things like confidence, how much exercise they're getting for their creativity, how much they are learning how to learn, how that self-esteem is building. So it's really a different way of looking at learning, which can take a while to get used to. I think that deschooling is probably hardest for parents because we feel such a huge responsibility to ensure that our children are well and are learning and are going to be okay. And our deschooling really involves letting go of everything that we've believed. It's a paradigm shift, going from, marks matter to well-being matters, going from, you can actually evaluate and assess and measure a child's progress to realizing that you can't really do that. You can only really consult them and find out how they feel about what they're achieving. So it can be quite frightening for a parent if they, for example, see a child in a natural learning pattern, because a natural learning pattern often comes in fits and starts. And somebody will spend a lot of time working on something and then drop it and then pick it up again a few months later. And the time in between, it was kind of integrating and incubating. But from the outside, that looks as if it's a complete lack of progress, a complete loss of interest. All of these sort of natural ways of learning aren't what we're used to when we've been schooled. I think this has been a very, very powerful time for many people. The whole idea of frog boiling, that people slowly get used to something and they don't realize that it's actually really not healthy or not great or not what they really want, but it's normal and there's nothing to contrast it with. So you don't realize that it's a problem. And I think what's happened at this time is a lot of children have come out of school suddenly, and parents are seeing a new level of well-being, a new level of engagement. There's a question now of, what to do with that. Do we kind of patch the child back up and send them back in to accrue that damage again? Or do we have the confidence to actually run with it and say, well, this was a lucky break. We didn't actually realize. And now we can actually, keep moving forward, growing into the freedom. The really, really big thing, we've got this blessing. And the blessing is that there's 100 years of evidence in the UK and more than 50 years of evidence in the USA that says that it doesn't take a special kind of child to self-direct. What it takes is a special kind of relationship. And that is a relationship of trust and support and empowerment. That if you can find it in yourself to read and watch and listen and connect with a community so that you can really get it in your bones, so that you can have the confidence that your child will be okay, that they're actually on a more powerful learning path now, allowing our children to learn how to adapt in their own way and become more self-reliant and find their own ways to learn and to be empowered is really the best preparation we can give them for whatever it is that might come. So we want to think very carefully whether we want to try and go back to a normal from yesterday that might not be the normal of tomorrow yet again, or whether we want to grab this opportunity to see what we can build together that will be flexible enough to see our families thriving, whatever the future may bring.
That does it for this episode of the Lockdown Learning Podcast. We would love to hear your feedback as well as any other suggestions you have for future episodes. You can contact the show via email at lockdownlearningpodcast@gmail.com.
If you want to learn more about our guest today, Je'anna Clements, or about Deschooling, you can find lots of information in the show notes for this episode. Next week, we're continuing to look to the future and ask ourselves, how do we want to move forward with educating our children after the lockdown?
That's right. Did you know that there is a wealth of educational options available almost no matter where you live? Our next episode is dedicated to exploring what's available and helping to provide alternatives for all of our listeners and their families.
Look for that episode coming next week. In the meantime, if you'd like to find out more about all that self-directed learning stuff, you can find a wealth of information on our school's websites. East Kent Sudbury School is online at ekss.org.uk and Alpine Valley School is online at alpinevalleyschool.com.
Thanks for listening today. I'm Mark.
And I'm Kate, and this is the Lockdown Learning Podcast.
Until next time, remember to take a deep breath, hug your kids, and pat yourself on the back because we know you absolutely deserve it. Be well.